Welcome to Colonie TV, the governmental educational channel for the town of Colonie.
It goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. And all my life's a circle, I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round again, the years keep rolling by.
Top of the day, I'm Joe Doolittle.
And I'm Kate Dudding. Welcome to Story by Story, sharing the human experience.
Through story, don't you know? And story is one of those wonderful, wonderful elements in life that can bring your imagination out where you can deal with it. It can bring family memories to the table when everybody's gathered around. It's the thing that stimulates learning in people. It's a wonderful, wonderful element in our lives. Oh, you and I may be biased, Kate.
Well, remember, there are folk tales that go back centuries and centuries.
That's true.
In hundreds of cultures. So it's not like something we just cooked up last week.
That's true, that's true. Although you like to tell stories about people who cook things up, don't you?
Well, he's referring to I have stories on Julia Child.
Yes. And they're wonderful stories, and I remembered them. And at my age, remembering important stuff is, well, it's important. What this hour is like is that we will talk a little bit about story and how we're feeling about it. We have a guest teller who we'll introduce in a bit who's just wonderful, and she'll share some of her own journey as a storyteller and a few stories. And then in between, you're going to do a little update on what's going on in the world of storytelling, and we want you to know that there is a world of storytelling.
Yes.
There is the Story Circle at Proctor's production company, which runs a number of programs at Proctor's and at other venues around. And there's the Story Circle of the Capital District and some allied groups that meet monthly to tell stories and to refine the art of storytelling. And all that's on our website. We're going to tell you about that a little bit later, but I got to take another deep breath. Because they're kind of taking us in after Christmas.
Right. Well, in December, as I was getting ready for some holiday storytelling programs, I thought, I need another story. And the next day on Facebook, my friend Michael McCarty from California posted a beautiful picture of an African-American woman and a little bit of her story. And her story, Osiala McCarty, they have the same last name, but I don't think that they're related. But when she retired at age 86, after having been a laundress her whole life, starting at age 12, she decided to give over half of the money that she had saved for scholarships for the University of Southern Mississippi, which was in the town she lived, but she had never been on the campus. But she wanted to give students who wanted to go to college and didn't have the money, she wanted to give them a chance that she hadn't had.
Wow.
So she had saved $280,000 over her lifetime. And she gave $150,000 to start that scholarship fund.
Now that's a story.
And she inspired Ted Turner. He said, well, if she can give $150,000, I'm going to donate $1 billion to various causes. So that's a nutshell of a story that I made the request. I need a new story for the holidays, and since the holidays are considered a time of giving, I thought that was a story that fell into my lap.
Well, a light bulb went off. Like when stories are told that generate other stories, it's usually what happens with listeners. And even when we're telling, we'll get another idea of another thing we were reminded of. And I'm reminded of seeing a very good friend at church this Christmas. And he's a college professor, and as a layman, he had done time in our denominational leadership and become the president of the General Synod of the Reformed Church in America. And this was quite an honor. And another friend, who's a street minister, Art Hudak. I'll give his name because you got to know some of these people to appreciate the story. At kind of a gathering of clergy, Art gave my other friend a little medallion that said, "Listen with the ear of your heart." And as I tell the story, I can't remember where Art got it, but he gave it to Brad and literally put it around his neck. Now, this is a very formal college professor, and I have rarely seen Brad in the last 4 or 5 years at a church function when he didn't have that little reference, that blessing about listening with the ear of your heart. And if you ask him about it, he'll tell you the stories of the reminder of what it meant to listen to the situations he was experiencing as the president of our General Synod Council for a year. And so there's the billions of dollars of Ted Turner. There's the generational or generative quality of the gift. However significant, I suppose you could say gifts are always significant, whether they're monetarily rich or spiritually rich. And so we've come through a time of giving. And it's a wonderful way to go into a new year, I think, Kate.
Exactly.
A couple of good stories will help you carry that feeling all the way through the blizzards of January.
Yeah, I don't have many of her quotes yet, but one of them was, "I spent my money on what I needed, not what I wanted. What you want and what you need are two different things."
Wow.
But I could rarely pass by buying a bouquet of flowers.
I can identify
So
with
she
that.
considered her life well lived and rich because she enjoyed what she was doing. She felt she was doing something good, and she did it well.
There you go.
In fact, one of her customers has a few of the shirts that she last washed and starched and ironed for him that he's just saving, that he's not going to wear. Every once in a while he goes over and he looks at them and he smells them and
There you go. There you go. Well, we have a wonderful program planned for you. And it involves a guest teller from, I guess we could say she's from the North Country because she's from Salem, New York.
But she's from the South, too, because she grew up in North Carolina. But her mother's from Norway.
So she's really an
A
immigrant.
woman of the world.
A woman of the world. Siri Allison is here with us today, and we'd like to welcome her. And Siri, it's great to have you here. And if in my introduction I've skipped through something important that it's necessary for our viewers to hear, please fill in that blank.
No, you haven't skipped anything.
Okay. Well, there you go.
I heard a story on the radio similar to Kate's story.
Oh, did you?
About a family of 6 or 7 children in the 40s or 50s who had no money to go to college, and the eldest son was doing well in school, and then he wasn't going to go to college because the family needed his money to work. But one of his neighbors, an old elderly woman who I think worked as a domestic, said, "You must go to college and I will help support your family so you can go. Do not work. You have to go to college." And that whole family of kids went to college with that old woman's help, and they all became, doctors. And not that a doctor is,
Right.
it's fine to be a truck driver, but this whole family each child did what they needed to do because that old domestic woman helped support the family.
I made good use of their education.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Now you probably heard that story on the radio.
I heard that story on the radio.
Okay, and now when you hear stories, what's the process for you collecting stories that you're going to tell?
Ooh, I am very picky.
Oh.
I am very picky about
Why did I
what story
not think
I'm
that was going to
tell.
be the answer?
Well, a story has to resonate in my
Yes.
heart, and so picky, waiting for the resonation. Is that a word?
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't say, I didn't take it as you were snotty. I
No.
took it that it okay, go on. Why am I putting words in your mouth?
No, you're right. It has to resonate, and it has to have a good ending. I find so many stories have a great buildup or a great problem that you have to solve, and then by the end, the solution it doesn't fit. I read story after story after story after story looking for the ending. And what else? Well, I love language. I love language. So sometimes I try to incorporate the language that I find the story in,
Right.
especially if it's old language.
And language in two senses, at least from what I've experienced of your storytelling. You tell some Ray Bradbury stories, and he has wonderful language.
Yes.
Phrases that stay with you. But also you do accents marvelously.
Oh, well, they're fun, and somehow to me it gives the flavor of the story or I don't know.
The people.
Yeah.
So
I like to do accents too, but they somehow all sound like Irish. I just don't know. Can't get out of that mold. So
I can't do Scottish.
can't do
Scottish it falls into Irish too.
no,
Celtic.
That's true. Celtic could be Scottish, and then you could say, well, I can do Scottish. I just don't do it well. The other thing that, when did you discover that you were a storyteller? When did you begin to identify that you had a talent and a desire to tell stories?
Well, I come from the theater, and I quit theatering when my daughter was born, so I could stay home with her. And when she was in second grade, I can't even remember why, I think a friend of mine who's a violin teacher in that school said, why don't you come tell a story to go with my violin playing in the classroom? And then I liked that so much I continued telling stories in that classroom every week and developed this whole repertoire for the schools. My idea was that I would develop a repertoire, and I had around the world stories that would last almost a year, and character building stories that would last almost a year, and then kindergarten stories that would last almost a year, and then I would go get a grant, because then I would be worth the grant. But then when I went to get the grants, I discovered that they want to give you a set amount of money for a short time or a big performance, like a 1 week residency, and I wanted to do a 1 year residency. And so, well, I got a lot of good stories out of it.
Yes.
And I got a little practice out of it. And I met some wonderful kids. I enjoyed it very much. But
I haven't heard of many schools that have their own storyteller, though there is a full-time storyteller in New York City who came to one of the New York State gathering of storytellers. And one of her students went on to be one of the national torchbearers, one of 10 young people chosen as exemplary storytellers.
Oh, really?
Yes.
At Pigeon Forge, is that what that happened?
I don't know whether it was in Utah that year or it had
Yeah,
moved to Pigeon Forge by then or not.
Fun.
But yeah, it's not a well-defined slot.
no.
Though, have you introduced yourself to the Waldorf School in Saratoga?
No.
Because they, I think, put an emphasis on storytelling
And singing.
and knitting.
Yeah.
Any kind of art they probably.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Great program. Well, Siri, did you bring a story for us to listen to today?
I did. I brought a story.
Well, wonder of wonders.
And
I
Love
brought
to
a
hear.
story, and I brought, when my daughter was in second grade, which is when I started, I said to her, what is it you like about when I bring a story into the class? And she said, I like it when you bring things to show us. So I brought some things to go with
We
my
do
story.
show and tell this.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Okay.
Great. Well,
Yes.
tell on.
And number one is your camera.
All right.
I don't think I mentioned that.
No,
earlier.
you didn't mention that. Okay. Well, this is a story from the Mayan culture. The Mayans lived in Guatemala and Mexico and Honduras, and I understand that it's not a tribe, but a civilization of different tribes. So the Mayans disappeared about 1200. They didn't actually disappear, but their cities emptied, and a lot of people died. We don't know why, but one theory is that it was a drought, a famine, and whether that came from deforestation or just climate changes or whatever, overpopulation. This story, in my opinion, might have come from the time of that drought. And if it did, it gives me goosebumps. It's a very political story. And so if I was in the classroom, I would show the children that that is a solid sound, and this is a hollow sound, so that if you were going, you could hear when the sound changed.
Hold that thought.
Hold that thought.
Political and sound.
Right. So, are you ready? Once there was a drought. No rain, no plants, no food for the animals. The paca, the peccary, the deer, the spotted skunk, the rabbit, they were all so thin you could count their ribs. Their fur was dry and falling out. They were tired and grumpy all the time. The only animal who did not seem to be affected was fox. He was nice and plump, his hair was soft and shiny, and he was full of smelly burps. Other animals like him, fox, you have food somewhere that you're plump, your hair is nice and shiny, and you're full of smelly burps? But Fox would not answer them at all. So they said amongst themselves, he must have food somewhere. Let's follow him and see if we can figure out where it is. And so they followed Fox at a distance, and they saw that he seemed to disappear into a hillside, a rock-faced hill with boulders at the bottom, and Fox just seemed to melt into those boulders, and they said, there must be a cave inside that hill. He probably has food in there. How can we find out? I'll go. It was Flea. Good, they said. Flea, you go hop on Fox and you can see what's in the cave. And so Flea hopped, and he 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 hopped. And finally, he found Fox and hopped onto him. But he was so tired from all that hopping, and Fox's fur was so soft and warm that Flea just fell asleep. He slept all afternoon and all night long, and he didn't wake up until Fox came out into the bright morning sunlight. And when that sunlight hit Flea, he woke up and he realized he'd missed his chance. He hopped off and he told the other animals, I'm sorry, I slept. I was too tired from hopping and I did not see what was in the cave. That's okay, said the other animals. Thank you for trying. But now what will we do? I'll go. That was Tick. Now, ticks don't hop. So Tick waited by the side of the path until Fox came along, and then Tick jumped on Fox's leg and crawled up onto his back. He took a nice long drink of Fox. Oh, it had been a long time since Tick had been on a healthy animal. He drank and he drank and he drank and he drank until Tick was so full. Oh, and Fox was so soft that Tick fell asleep. He slept all afternoon and all through the night, and he didn't wake up until Fox came out of the cave into the bright morning sunlight, and that sunlight woke Tick up. And he realized he had missed his chance. And he rolled off and he said to the other animals, I'm sorry. Fox just tasted so good and I got so full I fell asleep and I don't know what was in the cave. That's okay. Tick, thank you for trying. Now what will we do? I'll go. It was Firefly. Good, said the other animals. You go, and with your light you can find out what's in the cave. So Firefly flew over to the rocks, and she crawled around on those boulders until she found an opening, and she went through it. A little way she found herself flashing her light in a cave. It was a large cave, and the cave was full of corn, white, plump ears of corn piled 10 and 20 deep from the ground to the ceiling. The cave was full of corn, enough corn for all the animals. Firefly was very excited. She flew out to the other animals. The cave is full of corn, enough corn for all of us for a long time. Oh, said the other animals, it is not right for Fox to keep all that corn to himself. We are starving. How can we get to that corn? Oh, they thought and thought how to break open that cave. Finally, they called the strongest creatures they could think of, and that was lightning. They called 3 young, strong lightning bolts, and they explained what they needed them to do to break the rock face of that cave. That should be easy, said the first young, strapping thunderbolt, and he gathered his strength and then he threw it at the rock face of the hill. Nothing happened. Let me try, said the second lightning bolt, and he sharpened the jagged edges of his bolt, and then he knifed it right into that rock face. Nothing happened. Oh, it's my turn, said the third one, and he heated himself hotter than the sun, and then he blasted away at that rock face. Nothing happened. Oh, said the animals, we're so hungry, we need that corn. Oh, what are we going to do? I have an idea. It was Grandfather Lightning. I'm not as strong as I used to be, but I have an idea. I'll need Woodpecker's help. Woodpecker flew up, and Grandfather Lightning explained that he wanted her to peck down the side of that rock face until she heard the sound change. And where the sound changed, that's where the cave was, because that's where the rock was hollow, and at that point, the rock should be the narrowest and the easiest to break. So Woodpecker flew over to the rock, and she began to peck down the face of that hill. Peck, peck, peck. Peck, peck, peck. Peck, peck, pock. Pock, pock. Peck, peck, pock. It's here, she called. The sound changed. She waited while Grandfather Lightning aimed his bolt, and then she flew away, and he struck the rock at precisely the right spot, and it cracked, and then it opened, and the corn poured out. Thousands of ears of white, good corn, and the animals fell upon it and ate and ate. And it turned out to be enough corn to last them all for the whole time of that drought. They survived until the rains came and the plants grew and there was food again. And that's the story of how the animals survived the drought. But a few other things happened that day. The corn, which in the cave had been white, as corn usually was, the corn was affected by Grandfather Lightning's bolt. Some of it got the light of the lightning and it became yellow, and some of it was caught by the fire and it became red, and some of it was singed by the smoke and it became black, and it became what we here in America call Indian corn. And also, you know, Woodpecker, she flew away, but not quite fast enough, and Grandfather Lightning just singed the top of her head and turned it red. And since that day, we've had red-headed woodpeckers. And that's the story of corn in the rock. Corn in the rock.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Can you imagine if that really is from 1200?
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think when a story has these things that we would consider to be sort of in bad taste, like fleas and ticks and smelly burps.
Yes. I thought you liked saying that, though.
Well, like, for example, there's stories about you capture the troll by picking the lice out of its hair. These stories, they seem to me that they must be old. They must be old, or that they're at least from a different culture, clearly, because we wouldn't tell a story like that. So.
But if someone had, trolls deserve lice in their hair. Or maybe.
Well, I like the one line about taking a big drink of fox.
Yes, I'm going.
Now,
what is that? Oh, blood.
Well, the tick we're talking
Bloodsucker.
about. Yeah, I can see where somebody in the second or third grade, or somebody 60 or 70 would say,
Yes.
but so that actually there was some very vivid imagery there. I mean, the lightning bolts, and I love the way you kind of brought the corn with you to explain how that Indian corn had come to be. Rational, fun.
Which makes it a pourquoi story.
It does.
Why story? Yeah, pourquoi story. Now, Siri, where did you find that story, or how did that story find you? Maybe that's another way of asking the question.
That story found me by one of my around the world stints, was doing various countries, and I was doing Guatemala. So I was looking for native Mayan Guatemalan stories, and
Found one in a book.
Yes, but unfortunately at that time I didn't know that I needed to document where I found things. I would go to the library and get stacks of books, and then when my husband came home from work, I would go to the deli and stand there for minutes, hours, spending nickels Xeroxing stories and not writing down where I got them from. So I don't know what book that's from.
Well,
But-
that's still it's a.
But maybe nowadays with Google, you might be able to put in a few keywords and.
You might. I don't think that one's in there because when I can't find a story because I've misfiled it,
Yeah.
I go to Google and then I don't think I could find that one last time I was looking for it. But, it's constantly updated, so that was probably 2 years ago. So.
Right. So, and Google has a books section.
Aha.
Like they have video
Yes.
and images, and they have books too. And so they have, I don't know how they select them or whatever.
So you could go to the book section and perhaps find something
Right.
that you didn't find from an ordinary.
Right. Or you could go to Margaret Reed McDonald's index.
Yes.
And look under woodpeckers
Aha.
and see if,
Or
or she
corn in
also
the
has
stump.
it. She also has it by cultures. So those are
Aha.
possibilities. If you need to find out the source.
That's a very good idea. That's a very good idea.
That's a good idea to put up on our when we post our informational things, just to give those websites out because other people might want to know about those.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So we'll do that.
That's Storyteller's Source Book. It's a big, and there's volume 1, which was her PhD thesis work, and then there's volume 2. So volume 1 takes folktale, typically picture books, up until she got her PhD, and then the next volume looks at more recently published books.
And I have volume 2 at home, but not all libraries have that, so you might have to look a little
The
bit.
Saratoga, I know, has it. I don't think Clifton Park does. I splurged, and I eventually I went, I need this. And
Yes,
so
of
I
course
bought
you
my
do.
own
Yes,
copies.
yes,
So I have
yes,
1
yes,
and 2. So,
Yes.
anyways, we digress. But since we're digressing, shall we go on to coming attractions?
I
So we have
think-
time for, because I think Siri has a second story for
Right.
us.
Let's go do that, and then we'll come back to Siri. Thank you, Siri.
Yes. Okay, well, I hope you're seeing this early in the month of January because our first production is on Sunday, January 5th at 2 o'clock at Proctor's, Betrayal and Beyond. Stories told by the three of us, as well as Betty Cassidy, Margaret French, and Sandy Schumann.
Now, Wordplays has a theme every time, and our theme is about stories of people who were either betraying or betrayed, and beyond means that they might still be haunting, around in some way. It's going to be an interesting program.
I was thinking there was a resolution to the betrayal, but
Oh, well, you tell it your way, and
yeah,
I'll tell it my
exactly.
way. Okay.
That we put out, our process is Joe and I come up with titles and dates, and we put them out to our guild and say, do you have a story that fits this title, and what type of story it is it, and how long? And then we try to come up with balanced programs of, a variety of storytellers, and, not 4 ghost stories unless it's a program about ghost stories, or 4 Mayan stories. We wouldn't probably want that.
Now, a good thing about word plays is that it happens at 2 o'clock on Sunday. That's Sunday, January 5th. And the Green Market, the Schenectady Green Market, is inside in the arcade at Proctor's and in Key Hall. So
in the basement.
In the basement. So there's a lot going on. You can come after church or come anytime and graze the Green Market, pick up your fresh potatoes and other kinds of things, get a little spot of lunch because there's some wonderful restaurants represented there, and then at 2 o'clock come up for storytelling, and at the intermission of our program, you get dessert as part of your ticket. And Siri has been part of the crew that's helped pull that together, and we're grateful.
Well, it's her idea.
So come and hear the stories, and thanks, Siri, for dessert. There we go.
And then later that same week, on Wednesday, January 8th, at Cafe Lena, is the Saratoga Storytelling Open Mic, and the featured teller this month is Joe Doolittle.
That's going to be fun. And I should say that this open mic is really an open mic for tellers. And as the feature teller, you get, about 2 stories worth, or 20 minutes to tell stories. And it's going to be fun. And I may be going over around the corner after it's over to the Merry Monk. And if you haven't been in the Merry Monk, you really should come to that little program and journey with me, or maybe pub crawl is a better term for it. But it'll be a wonderful evening in Saratoga of stories, and you get coffee and dessert at Lena's.
Very modest prices.
$3. Great program.
Yes. And then we have our guild meeting on Tuesday, January 21st, here at Colonie Town Library, 6:30 to 8:30. It's for people sharing stories under development or people who want to listen. We ask only that you tell and not read, and that the stories should be 10 minutes or less, unless you make special permission, get special permission ahead of time.
And the welcome latch is always out for storytellers and story listeners at our meetings, so please be encouraged.
This is the Joe Doolittle month.
January is Doolittle month.
Because on Sunday, January 26th, at the Glenn Sanders Mansion, Joe and his cronies, Harlan Ratmeyer and Kent Bushman, will be telling stories of home, hearth, and all that jazz. This is our 15th season at the Glenn Sanders Mansion. I think it's our 105th storytelling dinner for adults. The special guests will be the Hamilton Hill Arts Center Jazz Ensemble, and it is a benefit for the Hamilton Hill Arts Center.
Yeah, it is. The Hamilton Hill Arts Center is a great organization that's been working on Hamilton Hill for really support and generative artwork and skills for people for kids in the inner city. And there's a story about this that involves how they got their instruments, and a couple of other storytellers, and we are going to have a good time, and they are going to play, and I'm going to live out a fantasy. So if that doesn't entice you to come, then
Something
I don't know
on your
what
bucket
will.
list?
It's actually a redo of a bucket list item, but it was so much fun that I decided I would reprise the event, and I needed a jazz band.
Okay, well, you've got to come and find out what this is all about.
Yep. And I'm really looking forward. I've come to know the director of the Art Center is Mark Chars, who is the retired chief of police in Schenectady, and has a story unto himself. So there's been a lot of great connections out of my involvement with the Art Center and my involvement with the stories, and I have great respect and wonder for Kent and Harlan, and I think they're going to play right into this theme, and we're going to have a great time.
Well, I've always enjoyed all of your gang's stories.
That's right.
They go by the name Three Spirits, but cronies,
Yeah.
pals, pub crawlers. Anyways, beer lovers. Now, if you want more stories before these events happen, or you have to miss one for some reason, you can go to our website, storycircle@proctors.org, and click on YouTube. There are now over 100 stories on our YouTube channel for you to choose from and enjoy. And if one of your friends says, "Why are you always talking about storytelling? What is storytelling for adults about?" please point them to storycircle@proctors.org and YouTube so that they will become enlightened to this ancient art form. Either it or music were the first performing arts, or maybe they came sort of together. But please join us one way or another.
There's one other online reference that's not one of our production efforts this month that I'm involved with, which I'll just mention, Kate. I facilitate the Healing Storytelling Alliance conference calls, and the Healing Storytelling Alliance is a group of tellers nationally that are interested in how story helps in the healing arts and in personal interrelationships. And it's at healingstorytellingalliance.org. And for the last 5 years, we've had a series of workshop conference calls, and we've archived them. So they're on that website for free. Just last night we had a program on dealing with your legacy stories, or passing on your values to the next generation, by Bob Kanengas and his wife. And it's just a great listen. And it's also good as listen for methodology on how to do something as a conference call and get participation. And it's free. And it would help build your background if you're a teacher or a nurse or a physician or a parent in just the method of storytelling. And I encourage you to check that out. And you can join the Healing Storytelling Alliance for $35. It's part of our national effort called the National Storytelling Network. And so I just thought, since that's fresh in my mind, it was a wonderful program last night. Our own Marnie Gillard, Gert Johnson from the Interfaith Storytelling Alliance here locally have been workshop conveners in the past. So I just think that's out there.
Yeah. Storytelling isn't just about performance or telling stories among your family. That a number of therapists use it to help people become well. And a number of years ago, I was clinically depressed, and my therapist said, "Well, don't you have some stories that you could find some stories that relate to your problem?" And I went, duh. But when you're clinically depressed, your ability to think at all, let alone logically, is diminished. And in 2 weeks, I had a story about what I had been doing and a story about what I should have been doing. And in fact, that's going to be my story at Betrayal and Beyond.
Oh, really?
All those things put together.
Oh.
So.
Well, that's another advertisement, and that was a good reference on the Healing Storytelling application too. So I appreciate that. So we'll come back on some of those other major themes of our National Storytelling Network, because there's a producers group that Kate and I participate in. There's a storytelling and organizations group that uses this within the world of corporate work.
There's storytelling in education, both elementary and high school, and then in higher education, there's another group in that.
Yeah. So that there's more for us to bring to you from that too. But for now, you can check out that other website as part of what we've offered you this month.
And storynet.org is the website for the national
more about that
organization, National Storytelling Network.
Oh.
But let's get back to Siri's second story.
She has a second story.
I have a second story.
She was being very patient.
Sorry. I'm being giddy. Okay.
It's over to you, Siri.
All right, this story is an Inuit story. So, two geographic native stories. It's from the Colonie people. I have not been able to find out much about the Colonie people. If you Google them, what you come up with is this story, which I found in a book a long time ago. I don't know which book. And it was translated in the late 1800s. So it has some of this language that I like. And the challenge in this story is to not go with that language completely, but to integrate it. So you may find that a little rocky. But also, then of course they didn't say he or she or humankind, they said mankind. And so I've left some of that in because I think it's simpler. It doesn't bother me. It flows with the story, so I hope it doesn't bother anyone who listens. And it is called, although I won't keep this language the whole time, "The blessed gift of joy is bestowed upon mankind." And I'm telling it because I need to hear it at Christmas time. Speaking of healing stories.
Right.
Right. All right. Once there was a time when people knew no joy. Their whole life was work, eat, sleep. Work, eat, sleep. The monotony rusted their minds. Now, at this time, there lived in an isolated house at the mouth of the Colville River a family, a father, a mother, and 3 sons, who were fast becoming young men. The parents were very proud of these boys and were happy in the thought that in their old age, these boys would be able to provide for them. But it happened that the eldest son went out hunting one day and did not come back. The parents searched everywhere, but he seemed to have vanished without a trace. And then, a few days later, the same thing happened to the second son. The parents grieved deeply and watched, as you can imagine, ever more carefully over this youngest son, whose name was Ermin. Now, Ermin was of an age to go out hunting and fishing with his father. But as the months passed, it became clear that Ermin preferred to go hunting for land animals, while his father preferred fishing. And since hunters cannot base their lives on fear, it was finally agreed that Ermin should be allowed to go out and hunt by himself while his father went to sea in the kayak. And so it happened that one day Ermin was out stalking caribou on the plain. There was the large plain, the herd of caribou in the distance, some hills, and then beyond that, tall mountains. And from that tall mountain, Ermin saw something coming straight for him. And as it got closer, he saw it was an eagle flying faster than any eagle he had ever seen. And soon it was circling over his head and lit in front of him and tossed off its mantle of feathers and changed into a young man. "Ermin," said the young man. And Ermin thought, how did he know my name? "Ermin, I am he who killed your brothers, and I will kill you too unless you agree to hold a festival of song." Festival? Song? "Will you or won't you?" "I will, but I don't know what these words mean." "Come with me. My mother will teach you," said the young man. And so they set off walking. They walked across the plain, over the hills, down into the valleys, up into the steeper hills, down into the gorges, and then up, up, up the tallest mountain. And as they neared the top, Ermin heard a strange noise. Ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. "What is that noise?" he asked. "That is the sound of my mother's heart beating," said the eagle man. And Ermin was afraid. Well, they got to the top of the mountain, the sort of place where eagles like to build their nests, and there was a house, a human house, a small one, and they entered, and inside it was like an ordinary house, and there on the bunk sat a feeble, old, frail, sad-looking eagle. "Mother," said the young man to the eagle, "this is Ermin. He has agreed to hold a festival of song, but he says he doesn't even know what these words mean. He has come to learn from you. At these words, the mother eagle sat up straighter, and her eyes brightened, and she said, the first thing you must do is build a kagsa. And early the next morning, under the mother eagle's instruction, the young man and Ermine began to build a kagsa, which turned out to be a meeting house, a feast hall, a building bigger than Ermine had ever imagined. So during the day, they worked on this kagsa, and at night, the mother eagle taught him to think of memories, of hopes, of funny things that had happened to him, and to put those thoughts together into words, and then to put tones to the words so they could be sung. And then she showed him how to stretch caribou hides over hoops of wood and shells, and to make drums and tambourines, and then to move his body in the rhythm that went with the tambourines and the drums. And when he had learned to sing songs and dance with abandon, and when the kagsa was finished, she said, "You are ready. Go home, build a kagsa, make songs, then hunt and fill your larder with meat. And when you have done all this, go out and invite everyone you know to your festival." And Ermine said, "I don't know anyone. I have never even seen another human being apart from my parents and brothers." People are lonely because they have not received the gift of joy. Do as I tell you. Go out, you will find people. Now, I have given you a gift. You must give me a gift in return. A gift? Ermine had come from hunting. He brought no gift. And then he remembered that his arrows were lashed to the shaft with sinew string, and so he unwound that sinew and he gave it to the mother eagle for her sewing. And so his gift was easy. And then it was time to go, and Eagle Man stood at the edge of the mountain, and Ermine climbed on his back, and the eagle jumped off, and they plummeted and then caught a current that helped them go between the mountains and across the plain. It was terrifying and exhilarating, and Ermine thought, I will turn this flight into a song. And then they were back where they had met. They were friends now. They bade each other farewell, and then Ermine walked home to his parents, who were, of course, overjoyed to see him. They were puzzled by the request, the demand of the mother eagle that they build a kagsa and make songs and have a festival. They had no way of understanding what she was talking about. But they agreed because they didn't want to lose this third child. And so, in their spare time from hunting and fishing, they built a kagsa during the day. And at night, in their hut, they remembered. They talked about their hopes. They joked. They stretched hides to make drums. They designed dances. And all this kept them warm in mind and body. And during those nights, if you had walked by their huts, you would have seen the light inside and heard laughing and singing coming from the hut, whereas in other months when you had walked by, you would have heard only cold, bored snores. Well, finally, everything was ready, and Ermine went out to find these people that the mother eagle had promised him. And to his great surprise, he found them. Merry men always find company. Well, these people were always in twos and dressed in furs, beautiful fox furs, wolverine, lynx, silver fox, red fox. And they all agreed to come, and they all followed him right then and there into the kagsa. It was a glorious time. They told stories, they traded songs, they taught each other dances, they feasted, they became friends, they joked. And not until the morning light broke into the kagsa did the guests begin to leave. And as they left, they fell forward onto their hands and scampered away as the animals they had been before the mother eagle called them to answer Ermine when he went out. Thus we see the power of joy that can turn animals into humans. and also that animals who have always been more light-hearted than people were the ones to be our first guests at a festival. Some days after this, Ermine was out again stalking the caribou, and he saw the eagle coming towards him. He lit in front of him and said, "Ermine, my mother misses you. She'd like you to come for a visit." "Gladly," said Ermine, and they set off walking. But before they'd gone too far, another eagle came flying, speeding from the mountain and lit in front of them, and it was the mother eagle. But she was strong. She had regained her youth, because you see, when men celebrate and are joyful together, even old eagles become young. This is the story of how joy and merrymaking came to the people of the Colonie tribe, who lived near the source of the Colville River. And to them, the eagle is a sacred bird of song and dance and all festivity.
Oh.
And that.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. It really resonated. There was a time when the people didn't know joy. That was a great line.
I love the line, "The monotony rusted their minds."
Yes, I even wrote that down.
I love that
Monotony
line.
rusted their minds. And just there was a couple of other ones that I can't bring back just now, but they'll wake me up in the middle of the night, I'm sure.
And there are a
Great
couple places
story.
where I stumbled because the original words are so great, but I couldn't get them out. But there are.
Yeah, it's such a vivid story, and I like the way that the mother eagle plays the role of the source of joy.
You must have joy.
That's right.
Well, yes, because
Get your stuff together. Yeah.
No, but it's about the importance of that sort of thing. In fact, the two brothers died because they wouldn't do it, and it was the youngest son, the proverbial youngest son in the story, but the one who was more receptive because he was younger, who was able to learn this lesson. But it was a very important lesson because you died if all you did was work and not listen to this.
Yeah, there's a new book out published by the Parkhurst brothers on gratitude. The author is Len Froyen, and I've met his wife at a number of national storytelling conferences. And I've just started it, but his premise is gratitude leads to happiness.
I'm sure that's so.
And so it's the same sort of theme that
Yeah, there are two strong aphorisms that I've used in actually my Sunday school classes and in basis for stories. One is along the gratitude line from a mystic named Meister Eckhart. Thanksgiving is the only needed prayer. And it was used in, Annie Dillard wove a series of stories about that in her writing. The other one is from I've Googled, it's an old Swedish proverb that would tie into that same expression of your story. And it's shared joy is twice the joy, and shared pain is half the pain. And I've used that as kind of a little bit of a lead-in or a closing to programs. And this is a great story. This is a great story.
What are those Annie Dillard stories?
Well, the phrase was used in one of her pilgrim at Tinker's Creek.
Oh, really?
Where she went off, and it's really about it being grateful for the experience of being alone.
I've been thinking to reread that. Yes,
Yeah.
especially now that I live.
Yeah, you live on the a little bit like
there's a spot in our land where the creek goes, and often I think of Annie Dillard there, and I think I need to go back and read that.
Yeah.
Reread
Well,
that.
that would generate a few thoughts. I'm more than sure. Yeah. But that was just wonderful. Just wonderful. And now you can't remember which book you took that out of.
No.
But you can find it by Google.
This is online now.
Okay. But how do you spell Kanglenek.
Well, you can Google the blessed gift of joy is bestowed upon mankind.
Okay.
And Kanglenek is Kanglenek, I think.
N-E-K. Okay. I was close.
Yeah, I can locate the Colville River, but I
Okay.
can't find out anything else about the Kanglenek people.
That's in Alaska.
That's in Alaska, yes. Unless perhaps it has appeared since the last time I looked for it, you know.
Interesting. So you did hot and cold stories with us.
Hot and cold, I did. I didn't think of that. But we did think geographically.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
it's hot and cold.
that's kind of fun. That's
Yeah.
kind of fun to think about that.
Yeah.
And we're going to be with you on January 5th
Yes.
at Proctor's. And do you have any other things kind of planned for the winter, telling wise?
No.
Okay, well we'll work on that too.
Okay.
We'll work on
Now, I don't have the schedule for the Interfaith Story Circle of the Capital District, but usually they have a Winter Lights
Right.
program in January or perhaps February. And their website is interfaithstory.org/Tri-City, Tricity.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Tri-City, yeah. And so when that information is available, it'll be on the meetings page there.
Okay. And that would be a good place for that story. Not sure what the lineup is on that, but we'll work on that.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, I have something else I just heard. I'm on a listserv of English-speaking storytellers, and Bob Canigis is on that.
Oh, really?
Yes. But another storyteller, again, who I've met at national storytelling conferences, Mary Grace Kettner, is from San Antonio. And she just wrote that she told 7 Hoja stories as part of a service at her church, her Christian church. And Hoja, Nasruddin Hoja, is a wise fool from the Muslim tradition. And she said, they say that if you hear 7 Hoja stories, you are now enlightened. And she told that, and she said afterwards she got a lot of good feedback after the service was over. But one man said, I've had a hard time understanding Muslims or
Understanding Islam.
yes, I just couldn't get into them, but this has given me a window into them. And I thought, humor. Who knew humor and interfaith storytelling and world peace, fit together? But I have a story about that, and here's another one. So this was just something that I learned yesterday, that it's like, what? Humor and religion and understanding. Who knew they were a good mix?
Well, the other, how much time do we have?
I think we're pretty much out of time, actually.
Well, if we're out of time, there are always going to be more stories. We'll be with you next month. We encourage you to come to any of the programs we've talked about because we think they're going to be fun and interesting. Siri, we're really pleased that you were here with us and brought your considerable skills and repertoire to our listeners and viewers. Kate, you just make the world kind of balanced for me with all the work that we try to do together, and I'm grateful for you too. So,
I'm grateful for your unbalancedness. We're a good combination.
Yeah, we like to say that we're married to other people.
Yes, we're married, but to other people.
Okay.
So thank you for joining us. We hope we had the pleasure of your company again.
Much good cheer. Thanks again, Siri.
Thank you.
It goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. And all my life's a circle, I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round.